Welcome to the Second Bite podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome to the Second Bite podcast. I am your host, Todd Taskey. Eric Bertrand is your guest, the CEO of ModUp. Eric, thank you for being with us.
Hey, Todd. Nice to talk to you again.
Geez, it's really great that you're here. So thank you for spending the time. I want to first start by thanking our sponsors, the people at Tower Partners. Tower Partners is an investment banking firm that I am a partner with. They're in Columbia, Maryland. They're great people. You can reach them through the show notes, but they're a generous sponsor. So thanks to the good people at Tower Partners. Eric, let's start with just basic intros if we can. First on ModUp. So ModUp, what do you do and who do you do it for?
So we are a true full service agency, advertising agency, marketing communications firm. We've been around for a long time. When I say full service, it's truly all the services that would be required for a company to get out their messaging from a marketing and advertising perspective. And so we've been through that growth. We've had significant growth over the last several years. It's been through acquisitions. So we have experts in all those areas of marketing services. And we service both Fortune 500 clients as well as middle market brands. Sometimes you call them maybe challenger brands, but generally enterprise type organizations.
Let's talk about Eric Bertrand for a second. A lot of the guys that we have as guests start an agency, they're a founder, they grow an agency, and you took a much different path right from the early days, right? Moving through private equity and then growing into CEO roles, chairman roles, and so on. Can you just, because I think the context is really helpful, can you talk a little bit about what that journey was like?
So from a young age, I was very interested in entrepreneurship and had a bunch of small little businesses and that kind of were really instrumental in developing my understanding of entrepreneurism and growth in companies and how these things work at a fundamental level. I went to college like most folks, graduated, went into private equity, as you mentioned. And I loved private equity, and it was really private equity to start with. It became venture capital as well in my second role. But I loved working with many companies. I loved working with companies that had massive growth opportunities and scenarios where they could use technology to drive their businesses forward or to enter new areas, do acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions. And I love that. And so I did that for the first part of my career, about 15 years. And when I left that institutional firm, I started to invest and enter management of companies that I was investing in. So it happened to be the first company that I did that with was a post-production company in New York, in New York City on 45th Street, moving images. And so I got to learn the industry kind of from a fundamental perspective from a post-production, which by the way no longer exists. It was a film to tape, tape to tape, telecine and company, and no one shoots film anymore, so that no longer exists. But I was able to get in there, turn the company around, and sold it to a larger post-production group out in the West Coast. And so that was my first foray into really managing a larger business and kind of using some skills, including some of the M&A skills, to drive that business forward. Got involved in a few other companies and then got involved in the predecessor to ModUp, which was a company called Eyeball in New York. And again, just kind of bringing a financial, operational, and M&A perspective to the company, which was like a different bend than a lot of the founders who are amazing and often start from a creative background or an account background or a technology background. And so it was definitely a different path. I didn't expect necessarily, if you had asked me 10 years earlier, if I was going to be the CEO of an advertising agency, I would have told you I would not have guessed that would be the case, but that ended up what's happening. And that was in 2010. So I've been part of the predecessor to ModUp and ModUp for about 15 years, almost 16.
So one thing I always wonder about, I would imagine back in the day of your post-production life, people were pretty well convinced that we're going to do post-production forever. You're always going to need to produce film. What do you remember about that business that you see in the world today of digital marketing in a space that's moving quickly, and SEO and all the AI and the rest. Give me your thoughts there.
If you kind of look at the history of marketing and advertising, technology has always played a massive role in the industry, and the evolution of technology has been very important in the way that has evolved. And so, if you go back to the days of desktop publishing and the desktop PC, and then the internet, and then social media and mobile, and in that time frame when we were in this post-production this post-production company, we were seeing the beginnings of that. We were seeing the red camera that was starting to come out in the digital world, and we were seeing that it was an expensive process to process film and to have to go through a telecine and get out the grain from the images, and you could just tell that technology was there. We had seen some kind of consolidation of some of the tape technology that various folks were using, because at one point there was so many different versions of that you would have to. That's one of the reasons these companies existed, is you would need to have all these different formats just to be able to send out your video or your commercials or your shows. So I think it was just the technology evolution that you saw, and we saw that was changing, and that things would evolve. And I think we are seeing that for sure in today's environment as well.
And so tell me about how Eyeball and ModOp kind of came together to become. Was there a specific intention behind that?
Yeah. So I've always believed that having a expertise where clients can have multiple services within one framework is just synergistic. I know that there's experts that have over the years that have been specific to creative or to digital. Originally when digital agencies came out, they were different. It was like you were either a digital or a traditional, right? And that obviously that has completely changed over the last 10, 12 years. So I think that I feel like having that one point of contact and having fluidity across the services that you offer is just an important aspect of synergy in driving value for the client. I do believe there's cost synergy. It allows you to be more budget friendly. I also think that it drives ROI, because if you have a complete holistic approach to a client's needs and business goals, then it allows you to really see everything and drive ROI from a different place than if you're just siloed in one of those different service areas.
Do you think that applies mostly to large enterprise or equally well to mid-cap and smaller?
I think for large and mid-cap, for sure. I think mid-cap, middle market companies are definitely view that as valuable, because for them, they don't have unlimited budget dollars. Like, they want to make sure they're using their budget appropriately and using it, working as hard as it can. And I think for the middle market, that really makes a lot of sense. For smaller, companies, for small businesses, et cetera, I think that's a whole different world. And to be honest with you, with the way technology is going today, I think there is a lot of self-service options that are becoming apparent for that small business, for the small companies that are able to use Meta or use Google services, and they're starting to roll out some self-service options. But I think for the middle market, it really makes a lot of sense. For the large scale enterprise, I do think that sometimes the scale of those companies, it's harder to try to consolidate everything under one group. But I do think that they are definitely looking to shrink the number of agencies they work with, and they're looking to do so because of the reasons I just mentioned. And it's definitely happening. So there's definitely consolidation occurring at the larger companies.
And so as the business is growing, somewhere, I'm assuming in 20 or 21, you decided we need to have more firepower. We need to have some money behind us. We need to be able to grow more rapidly. I'd like to take money off the table. Talk to me a little bit about how all of those things swirled around to form your opinion that you want to partner with private equity.
Yeah, that was it. We had completed a couple acquisitions in 2019 and 2020 off our own balance sheet and some investments that I had made. And it started to show that the model really could work well, integrating these other service offerings and experts in those areas into our model So as we integrated those companies in, we had merged Eyeball and Modus Operandi together in 2016 to create ModOp. Took a few years to get all the operational infrastructure going in the right direction, which I did. And then in 2019, we acquired a group out of Dallas, MC Communications, and in 2020, a group called Sage Communications out of Kansas City. And we integrated those into the ModOp model, and it worked. It worked really well. We added amazing expertise in some of the folks that we brought on board. We brought some amazing clients on board, and it just started to show that this model really could grow and scale. And so we went to we had a few different options at the time. In 2022, we decided I had met with a guy that I've known for a long time, Casey Swerchek from Alterna Private Equity, happened to be in Fort Lauderdale, which is where I live. And we ended up having an investment, kind of a recap. Some of the shareholders were bought out. I rolled the vast majority of my equity over as a partner into the new company or existing company, new structure. And we brought in Alterna as a partner, which has been about 4 years now. It's been great.
Did you interview a whole bunch of private equity groups, or was it because of the personal relationship? And Alterna is a great lower middle market PE shop.
Yeah.
Did you know that they were a great lower middle market PE shop? How did you come to that conclusion?
I knew Casey for a long time. That's part of we didn't interview a ton. And part of the reason for that is that at the time we were fairly small. So we had to find the right private equity firm that would be looking at a company that was our size at the time.
Can you describe that, Eric, in whatever terms?
Yeah. Private equity, when you say the word in general, private equity is institutional investment. And when you look at institutional investment, they have funds that are certain sizes, and those funds have to invest in companies which are certain sizes. And so if you're a company that's, say, sub 5 million of EBITDA, it's really hard to find firms that will say you've got enough scale and your operating model is interesting enough that we're going to invest. And most private equity firms, 5 million is actually the very, very bare minimum. Most of them are looking for companies that are 10 million plus. And they look for platforms. They look for companies that have the management. Of course, that's super important. The people, the expertise, the model, the clients, the ability to scale from a technology perspective, infrastructure in place, et cetera. So we had the latter. We had all of those things I just mentioned, but we didn't have massive scale yet. We were still growing. We had showed we were growing. We could show we could integrate acquisitions, and we're still smaller than the typical private equity firm would invest. I knew Casey for probably 10 or 12 years before that. I knew what kind of a person he is and kind of his philosophy around investing in companies. And I met his partners, Rob Conrad and Danny Speak, and just really because we did have other options, which were some were private equity, but more strategic, private equity backed strategic. And I really felt that this would be the partner that we could use to really grow the company and scale. And so that's the reason we chose them. It is very important that folks get to know who you're going to be investing with, because private equity does have a pretty bad reputation out there about kind of coming in and being heavy-handed with their companies, their portfolio companies, sometimes cutting costs. This was not the case with Alterna. It would not have been a partner that we would have wanted to be with if that was the case.
And a lot of private equity groups are pretty forthcoming. They don't want to miss either on an investment. They don't want bad blood. They don't want destruction of value. If you interview enough and ask enough, they'll tell you, right? We need to be hands-on. We need to be weekly meetings. Or we're hands-off. You call us anytime you have a problem. And so I think if CEOs are well served by just interviewing a bunch and getting to know what the marketplace is and what people are looking for. Yes. At Alterna, based on your comments, I'm assuming you were below 5 million of EBITDA when they decided to partner. They wanted to partner with you, and you've mentioned the ModOp model a few times. What about that is unique or was unique enough that Alterna said, we'll go lower and bet on Eric and team?
I think it was that we had built the infrastructure. We had shown that we were able to acquire and integrate those companies into our business. We had really nice clients and logos. They met with all of our senior management, who obviously they liked and I think are extremely strong. And so I think that we were the first investment in their first fund. And so, of course, they were taking a risk that you always want every investment, to your point, to be successful. But the first investment in your first fund, you
really
want it to be successful. Yeah. And I think, because Casey and I had a relationship that we had for, a while, and we knew each other, and, we had, I think that we were local, and we had the management, we had the operations and the infrastructure. So I would say the one thing we didn't have is that we didn't have references from other portfolio companies that they had worked with in the past. So it was really based on the personal relationships and their strategy, and talking to them about how we would interact and how it would work. And it's worked exactly like that. It's worked exactly how we'd expected it would work. They've been very helpful in assisting us with acquisitions and financing and growing the business and being there as a sounding board. They've been great with adding, operational, just thoughts around some of the things that we've done. But their goal is to partner with founders and senior management to let them grow their businesses and drive value, and that's exactly what they've allowed us to do. And it's been extremely successful.
And since February of 22, you've done how many acquisitions?
10. Yeah, 10.
That's amazing. Right? Yeah. With that much vision into it, what would you say are the three most important attributes that you look for? A, in the business, and B, in the CEO?
So it's interesting, because in the case of so we're looking to acquire companies that are these agencies with, say, 25 to 100 or so employees. And that means that most of those companies, none of them are private equity backed or investor backed, right? So they're founder owned and grown. And sometimes those founders are looking to move away from the business, retire. They want to diversify their holdings, and maybe they're not going to stay involved in the business. Other times they do stay involved in the business. So there's different trajectories that occur depending on what their goals are and how it makes sense. If they are going to retire or move on, we need to understand that next level of management is super strong and has the relationships with the clients. Because at the end of the day, this business has no assets other than and I don't view them as assets. It's the people, right? It's all about the people. It's all about the service they're able to provide, the expertise that they have. It's a people business. It's a complete service and people business. So if those clients walk away because the founders had the relationship and then they're no longer going to work, then you're buying only some expertise, and you're not going to be able to keep that amount of overhead to keep on a move forward basis. So it's just really important that that's happened. That's what we diligence when we're looking at companies, the relationships with the clients, the expertise that these companies have. That has to do a lot with the longevity of the client base, how long they've been working with them. And it has to the size of the clients too. Like, we need to understand that they are enterprise level quality companies, because we are not working with small businesses. That's a different business model, it can be a great one, but it's not ours. And so they need to understand how to work with enterprise clients, and that's what we found. We've really, it's worked really well, because we've been able to figure out how the companies have evolved and where they are today, what clients they work with, how they work with them, the expertise and management. And we've been able to, keep the senior management of those companies on board, adding value to ModOp overall. And that's the goal on a go forward basis, to continue doing that.
Of the 10 acquisitions you've done, how many of the CEOs wanted to stay and roll forward, and how many wanted to leave?
Probably about half. About half that I think had plans to retire. Maybe I should go back and look at the actual stats. It's probably about half. It's about half.
So,
and, yeah.
So the attributes to the CEO for that half doesn't matter. For the half that wants to stay, what attributes do you look for to know that they're going to fit the ModOp culture and style and work well with others? How do you think through that? What do you look for?
I think that being a strong they're all strong leaders, right? They wouldn't be in this role or in that position if they're not strong. So strong leaders are kind of in almost every case. They often either have one of two things. They either have expertise in one of the service offerings that we provide, or they have client relationships or account driven, one of those two. And I think that in the cases, all of them have one of those two skill sets where they're very strong at either one of those. Being able to change is important. Like, you have to be able to change and evolve because the model is different. We're not a small business. We're a large growing company, and being able to integrate into a larger company for the benefit of the clients, for the employees, and for themselves is important. You have to be able to upskill and change a little bit of the dynamics. The good thing is you don't have to worry about the things like HR and accounting and financing and all those types of things and legal, because that's all handled at the corporate level. And the good thing is it gets out of their hands into somebody else, and they can focus on what they really love doing, which is either client relationships or expertise in a specific service. So it's really about folks that are great at what they do and are willing to be very integrated with what we're doing, and also being able to change, because you're going to have to change a little bit. So change management is important. We found that the acquisitions that work the best are the ones that are able to jump on board, understand there's going to be some things that are going to change. There's going to be some systems. There's going to be some technology. There's going to be some aspects, some employee benefits. Things are going to change a little, but the goal is to have them change for the best, to make it better for their employees and their staff, better for their clients, offer more services, offer the ability to grow and scale, and that's kind of what we look for. It's we've met many great people. It's been amazing. Some of these folks are very talented. They're very strong. They have great expertise, and they're willing to look at change, which is important.
So let's go back to before Alterna. You were a relatively, compared to today, especially small business. Mm-hmm. The structure of deals that you created, how you were able to do those two acquisitions versus how you do them now with Alterna's help and pocketbook and financial strength. Can you talk about the differences in terms of just the structure of those deals?
Initially, when we were, those deals were definitely less cash upfront, just because we didn't have the cash on the balance sheet to be or investor to back us. And so the entrepreneurs that we worked with at the time took a risk, right? They took a little bit of a risk on us, and I think they believed that the company would take care of their employees and their clients, and we did. And I think that worked out really well for them. It worked out, well for us, and it was a different structure. Today, the structure is a little bit more cash up front. We have earnouts in place. It's structured, right? This business is definitely a structured business. No one pays all cash up front, because really the clients staying on board is paramount to the creation of value for those acquisitions. But that's the way it's changed. We've been able to use a little bit more upfront consideration and earnout structured in a way that is great for the seller and good for us. And in the case, knock on wood, we've never lost a large client that we've acquired in any of the companies we've purchased. So that's been amazing. In most cases, those clients have been expanded, and of course, we've added a bunch of new ones. But that's the model.
So, give me your thoughts on this. The first two acquisitions, to some respect, I'm going to assume they were underperforming with the clients that you wanted, or they were small and couldn't get other parties interested in acquiring them. So you were able to do that opportunistically. Whereas now that you have money behind you and a really good group, and you're the success story you are, you can really go after and compete for any opportunity that's in the marketplace or that you see. Is that true or an exaggeration?
Well, the first couple companies we acquired, it was in both cases, you had founders that were looking to retire or move on to their next thing. And so they were truly looking for.
I'm sorry, did you know those guys?
No, we did not know. We found them through business brokers. Business brokers came to us and let us know they were for sale. it was a process, right? There was other bidders and other buyers there. We did not offer the highest price or the best deal, to be honest. I think that it was the fact that we were telling them that the company would be stronger and would grow. Their clients would benefit from the other services and the other infrastructure we had. Their employees would be taken care of, and we would keep them part of our organization. They'd be able to grow in the business, which they have. We have several folks that have moved up the organization into ModOp and senior roles. And that was the reason why they went with us. And it was at the time, it was, like I said, there was a little bit of a risk to them. They were not declining businesses or anything like that. They were kind of stable business. I wouldn't say they were growing, they were growing to the moon, but they were stable companies, and they were just looking to move on to the next stage of their lives.
Were they $1 million-ish of EBITDA or less than that?
They were around there. Yeah, there, a little bit less, but right around there. And so they were smaller companies. Have been around for a long time. One of them was around for 32 years prior to our acquisition. So I'd been in business for a long time.
Huh. Okay. As you think about, I'm assuming acquisition will continue to be an important part of what you do. I'm assuming you guys are better at it now and a better story to tell now. What's on your target list?
I think we're sticking pretty much to the same narrative that we've had. I mean, agencies that are probably 30 to 100 people in specific, hopefully having enterprise. They will have enterprise level clients of some level, clients that have had a long history with them, of working with them, so that we know that they can service clients and they do it really well, or else they wouldn't keep those client relationships for as long as they have. And we're open to whether the folks are looking to retire or stay on, depending on the scenario, and we're open to that. But I think we've been able to really pinpoint the types of companies that we are. A lot of it comes down to personality and how we feel they're going to fit within the organization and how they're going to integrate into the company. And it's been great. We acquired a company in September. That acquisition has gone extremely well. They've added a service offering, some major, and have had a significant amount of new business because of their expertise that they brought on. And so that's the goal. And we have, we're always in discussions. I think we are one of the we've acquired as many or more companies than most in the US, if not the most. And we're still continuing to do so. So we see a lot of opportunities. I would say that we're pretty picky. I think the most recent numbers are we've seen over 400 opportunities in the last 4 years, and we've closed 10 deals. So 10 out of 400 or more. It might even be 450 at this point, 10 out of 450. And so we're very, very picky about it. And I think we've been able to kind of each one, you learn more and you understand what the right fit is.
So you're a busy guy. I would imagine looking at those 450 deals is part of the value that Alterna brings. Do you get people that reach out to you and you send it to Alterna, or Alterna is constantly on the hunt knowing what you're looking for next?
It's really both. The way that we kind of do it is they will receive opportunities pretty significantly. I receive them a bunch as well, just because of our reputation in the industry and the market. And it will usually, what happens is I will kind of screen them initially for just the smell test of whether this is something we think would be interesting or not. And so I'll
if I can. So you got a deck, it's 20, 30, 50 pages, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess you're not going to read every page, but you're going to go into that with your experience and look for 2 or 3 things. What do you look for first when you see a deck?
I mean, the first thing is just, what do they do, right? What's the expertise? Now, the problem is, and you know this, is that sometimes the company doesn't exactly do what
they've enhanced it a little bit. Yeah.
Sometimes you got to kind of leaf through that to figure out, they're not really a AI driven, technology business. They're really just a digital marketing agency. But nevertheless, once you kind of dig through that, then the second thing you look at is the clients. What clients do they have? If they are enterprise or they're small business. So if they're small business, we can immediately just say it's not something for us. It doesn't mean it's not a good business. It's just not for our model. And so we can that can move on. I think the next step is to look at where the company has been historically from a growth perspective. Are they a business that's flat, declining, or growing, and therefore, where are they in the marketplace from a growth perspective? And so if you kind of look at those three things, you can pretty quickly decide if this is something you want to spend more time on and read every page and every word that's written. And then initially it would be, once you do that, you think it's something interesting, you want to immediately have a conversation with management and find out if their goal is to stay, to move on, who they are, what they're like. And in those meetings, pretty quickly, you're going to understand whether this is somebody that you think is going to be a great fit or not. And there are plenty of times where we have that call and we just say it's not a great fit and we just move on. I had one the other day. I was like, this is not going to fit. This is just not our type of thing. And it's not going to work. So there's no sense in having another call. We let the banker know it's not, it's just not going to fit.
What do you think the biggest misconception is with founders about what buyers are looking for and what I need to pretend or what I need to project? If you were going to give advice to our listeners about what they can do, who they should be to be successful as they go into a process, what would you advise?
So I think you have two different paths. You have a path where you're going to be acquired by an agency like us or another mid-market agency or a larger company, or you have groups that are going to try to become a platform. So if you're going to become a platform, then you need to invest pretty significantly in infrastructure, people to manage that infrastructure, ability to technology to grow. You have to make investment in that technology, and you have to create that platform where investment dollars can come in from, say, a private equity firm or an institutional investor. If you're trying to build your business to be acquired by either mid-market or somebody else, I think that it's all about, again, it's client satisfaction, building relationships and growing clients and keeping the ROI super valuable for those clients so that they're going to be interested in working with you. The people, it's all about the people. Again, it's a service business. So keeping your retention numbers very high, keeping your senior staff very high and part of the organization. So it's not just about the founder, because if it's just about the founder, then there's a risk there, right? That if the founder goes away or retires or whatever, that there's going to be a problem. But having that senior management and account-driven relationships are really important in kind of diversifying that. So that's at the end of the day, I would say you as a small business owner, if you want to go from being an acquisition target to a platform, it's a significant difference. Like the amount of investment required for one versus the other is significant. And I know it's hard as a small business owner to invest a lot of money in technology and infrastructure and those things when you have your life to live. So you have to just make that decision at some point and then figure out which way you're going to go.
So and thank you for that. I agree. I see it's interesting because players like ModOp and some of the others that are well known have significant resources behind them and are making those investments at a critical time from an AI timeline perspective. The competition is definitely changing, is going to get stiffer going forward. So booking annual growth of 10 or 15 or 20% is going to get more and more challenging.
Yes.
Let me end with this question. What advice would you give anybody listening that does a transaction, post-transaction, they're staying on? What two things would you tell them to focus on to be successful as a acquired CEO now working with a private equity group or a strategically backed private equity play?
I think that being able to, as I kind of mentioned before, being able to change and learn how to adapt to the new situation that you're in, being able to adapt to a company. There are some companies that have stayed on the kind of the holdco model, which is kind of keeping companies a little bit separate. I think that model, as we've seen over the last several years, is changing significantly. Even the holdcos are consolidating internal agencies, are consolidating themselves. And I think that folks that can come into a scenario where you will be part of a larger organization and being able to understand how that organization works and be transparent and being willing to upskill and look at your client relationships and how do you evolve them? How do you add more value? How do you add more ROI? How do you use technology to do so? How do you use the other services and the other aspects and expertise of the company you are now part of to enhance those client relationships, to help drive value for those clients? How do you advise your own staff who are people that you've been maybe have worked with for a long time to become integrated into that new opportunity, to take advantages of those opportunities to upskill and train and to drive their careers forward, right? Because that's one of the things that I think is a huge benefit, which we didn't really talk about. But when you have employees that have been part of a 26, 7, 35, 40 person agency, there kind of is a ceiling as to where they can go because the founder is here and the founder often has everything go through them and they really are stuck in that level. You become part of a 600 person organization. You have the ability now, upward mobility in your career. You have the upward ability to upskill and add value, do things that maybe you weren't used to, work with clients that you've never worked with before. And that's a real benefit for employees.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons that drives people to a company like ModOp. You've obviously been quite successful at integrating them and creating great opportunities. It's interesting because oftentimes founders are concerned that their people will not be treated well or won't have the same opportunity or will be let go. And the reality is, I think from a ModOp perspective, if you're going to grow a bigger and bigger business, you really need more good people than
100%.
less. And good people are hard to find, right? Particularly the entrepreneur.
Yes. And people that are, again, we're in a time of change and people that are willing to learn strategy, learn creativity, use technology as a tool to drive their own performance and performance of their clients. And that's important. So I think that's one of the big changes we're having right now is going from tactical, where people have come in at a junior level and just kind of understanding tactical things, whether it's reporting or all kinds of things that they used to do, or versioning or whatever. It's now becoming more strategic and understanding how to use technology as a tool to help drive themselves forward and help drive their clients forward. And that's really the big change you're seeing in the industry across the board.
It's a great summary, great place to leave us off, Eric. This was really a great insight to understanding how a group like ModOp has had the level of success that you've had. So it'll be interesting and fun to watch that continue. Thanks for spending time with us and sharing so openly. Thank you to our friends at Tower Partners for being great sponsors and continued success. This has been a great episode, so thank you.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Great talking to you again, as always, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.